And Dali, thanks very much for your time. So, I mean, this really echoing those crime stats we saw released by police just a little earlier this year, just a month ago or so, I think. 58 murders a day, 12,000 murders committed in 2018-2019.
Yes, and like the crime statistics, unfortunately, this Victims of Crime survey also shows that there's a general uptick in contact crimes in South Africa, not just those reported to the police, but also in those that the victims of those crimes feel not compelled or don't see the need in reporting to the police.
So, Dali, this survey was initially called the Victims of Crime Survey, but it's now the Public Safety and Justice Survey, as done by Stats SA. What is the aim? What is it meant to tell us?
I think we should welcome the shift from the Statistics South Africa to having this kind of broader focus, because the reality is, although police play an integral role and a very important role in addressing crime and violence in our communities, we understand that there are multiple contributing factors that lead to the high levels of violence that residents and people in South Africa see and experience. And so a broader focus on what other levels of government might be doing or failing at doing is a welcome development. It means that we can hold all levels of government accountable for the ways in which they're failing to create a safer environment for us.
But I suppose the one criticism perhaps that will come out of this survey is the same criticism we saw from the crime stats, and that's that it's done annually when, in fact, what we need is perhaps a quarterly report so we can more accurately track those numbers and that interventions can be better planned.
Yes, definitely. So if this was done more often, that would allow us to, if, for instance, we're rolling out a specific intervention to try and address crime in a specific community, to in a much more real-time assess whether that's having an impact. The further problem with the Victims of Crime survey, even within this new iteration, is that it's looking at it at a national level, at a provincial level, but it's not taking it down to a precinct level, for instance. And so we can't see what levels of underreporting are in Khayelitsha, for instance, compared to Sea Point. And that has implications for where safety resources are being deployed or not being deployed. So having a greater sense at a much more kind of localized level of where underreporting is most extreme would help the police to be able to assess where additional resources are needed, not to just address the crimes that are reported to them, but to actually address the real incidents of crime in those spaces.
Absolutely, and it seems common sense, doesn't it? I mean, this criticism that you've just explained now, this issue of underreporting, and the fact that it's very difficult to then deploy resources in the right precincts. You mentioned Nyanga, perhaps, versus Sea Point in Cape Town. That's an issue that certainly analysts like yourself have raised many, many times in the past, and we're not seeing anything change.
Yes, that's definitely the case. So we do know, for instance, with property-related crimes, many middle-class families have the incentive to report a crime, not because they think the police are going to solve the crime or going to get their stolen television set back. They're simply reporting that crime to the police because they need a CAS number and able to claim from their insurance. And so what we're seeing is a over-reporting, not a over-reporting, a reporting, but a higher incidence of reporting at least, in wealthier suburbs, and then less reporting in poorer working class suburbs, and that then is skewing the picture. And unfortunately, even though the South African Police Service says that they're aware of the Victims of Crime survey, that they look at it to inform some of their practices, the Social Justice Coalition, for instance, knows that they're not looking at incidents of underreporting when they're allocating human resources to communities.
Yeah, absolutely. And you work on the ground, so you would have intimate knowledge of an issue like that. Thanks very much for your time. Dali Vey is joining us there via our Skype line as we continue to unpack the numbers coming out of that Victims of Crime survey. It is now known as the Governance, Public Safety and Justice Survey.